What's going on, everyone? Justin again, as always. Thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. I hope you're enjoying your work week so far. And we are getting close to the end of the work week, thank God. At any rate, my day has been busy as shit. The hot temperatures are coming up, which means more work coming in. Why? Because people have complaints about AC, overheating, coolant leaks. I mean, you name it, anything that has to do with heating and air conditioning starts coming in around this timing period, especially head gaskets. Guess what your good boy gets to do? Another 6-liter, that's right, Ford bulletproof cylinder head job where you put the studs in and throw the nuts on. God dang it, that means another cab has to come off. All right, but at any rate, let's take a look at some tech tips that I have for you, and then we'll be right back asking you guys the big question of the day.
Alright, something else I wanted to show you guys. If you ever run into a problem where you have a rotor, and you'll see sometimes the little screws that go into the hub that you have to use an impact tool like this with, in this case it's a Torx bit, which works the same way. I don't have to buy anything fancy here, but these were actually installed through factory to keep the rotor in place. And if you lose them, it's not a big deal. You don't even really need these damn things, to be honest. These are just how they made them when they made it in factory. So don't be concerned if you lose one of those guys. But if you don't lose it, yeah, put it back. Why not? It keeps the rotor in place so it doesn't flop around when you're putting the caliper on. But once the caliper seats and the pad's set, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. So food for thought. And see, just to show you guys that I wasn't really kidding about that, this side doesn't even have it, because whoever did the brakes only did just this one side the last time. Clearly you can see by the hot spotting that this customer has had an issue for a long time. But at any rate, yeah, you can see this one doesn't even have the screw. Doesn't, do anything, doesn't change the way that it brakes. So something else to think about. All right, here's something else that I wanted to point out, and this is like the perfect example in this vehicle that I'm doing brakes on. But look up close. Do you see all this nasty shit here? That's anti-sieze. That's like copper colored anti-sieze. Now they do make it in a silver. Should you ever put anti-sieze on lug studs? And if you live in a dry climate like I do in the desert, no, absolutely not. It changes the torque spec. I don't trust it. You most certainly don't want to put it on the spark plugs that go into an aluminum head. Now back in the day they used to do that to cast iron, but cast iron, when you would have a bunch of rust, it would make it damn near impossible to take them out without breaking them, so they started using anti-sieze. Nowadays people putting anti-sieze on these spark plugs going into aluminum heads, you lose the conductivity and you can cause a misfire, especially if you overgob the crap out of it. So I'm saying, look, unless you live in the Rust Belt, and we're gonna ask Rust Belt mechanic later, I would not recommend using anti-sieze on anything. Just put it in dry, leave it dry. Okay, also if you guys haven't been doing it, I'd really like you to remember and focus every single time you take a tire off, torque it down. Every time. It's not that hard. Just get in the habit of it, make it a habit, and you'll do it every single time you take a wheel off. It's just going to ensure your customer's safety.
Alright, I told you guys I'd show you. So here I'm showing you some slight differences, but virtually the same exact thing. Like I said, Jeff told me that Knipex allowed Monster to rebrand their product. They just use a different type of metal. There's a little bit of a difference here in the locking button, and in the how many teeth it actually drops down to, but virtually the same thing, virtually. I say that, like I said, there is some slight differences and variations, which you can expect from a cheaper product, but I only paid $25 for these ones. Shane, what'd you pay for these ones?
No idea, they came in a set.
He wants to say like $300, I think, for that one.
All right, everybody, what a hell of a day. Thirsty Thursday. It was like 118 to 120 degrees today. Fucking hot as hell. Got a lot of shit done though. Busy as shit. Want to know how you guys keep up when it gets busy? Because in the summertime, we're busy, bro. AC jobs, overheating issues, radiators, heater hoses, I mean, you name it. What is the most busiest part of the year for you? Because I know that some of you live in the colder climate, some of you get that hot climate, which draws in more business. Let's go home and talk about it.
All right,
right, so we are back here in the lonely garage, if you will, in the high desert. Hot as fuck. Okay, that being said, what are some of the most common seasonal repairs that you come across? Because I know in the wintertime, people start complaining about their heat. We seem to get a little bit more engine jobs and transmission jobs when the colder climate starts to hit. Soon as that hot climate and that hot weather starts coming into play, next thing you know, we got overheating issues, lack of cooling, lack of refrigerant. I mean, you name it, man. Leaks. I mean, Jesus. The oil pan gaskets, freaking heater hoses, upper and lower hoses. The fan clutches start going out. Coolant starts spitting out of the radiator. My car isn't blowing cold. I mean, these are all the things we run into in the summertime. The wintertime is more like, okay, I've got a minor oil leak, I've got a minor diff leak, and can you check out for this rattle or this noise, and I've got a slip in my transmission, and my engine's not exactly running as good as it used to. I've got this check engine light and it seems to be running rough, or I've got starting problems. That's a big one in the wintertime. Let me dude, batteries, cold cranking amps, it literally means cold cranking amps. Okay, so the colder it is, the more cold cranking amps you want in your battery, because otherwise when it sets overnight, it just seems to like harden it, and then you gotta fire it up and you warm it up. The next thing you know, a year later, you're replacing a damn battery. Ask me how I know. Every time I've had a battery problem, it's always been like in the near to dead of winter when it's the coldest. I don't seem to have that issue in the summertime. There's other things too, and I think even Scotty Killer pointed it out. Do I even have an example for you guys? I don't. Any rate, in the car, you have, if you want to plug your cell phone in, the other end of the USB cable comes with the AC adapter that you plug into the dealio, and next thing you know, you get to charge your phone, or you get to listen to your Bluetooth speaker. I don't know if that was that cheap AC adapter that I got from the Valero ended up being the cause of it or not, but I'll tell you this much, this last battery I had barely lasted a year and a half. Other batteries that I've had better luck with, like the Napa Gold. I've had better luck with the Die Hard batteries. Ultima. Okay, so I've heard of, or not Ultima, Optima. Optima batteries. Those ones I had a good luck with the Marine style for racetrack because we didn't have alternators, so we always had to recharge or trickle charge our batteries going into the next race day to make sure it had sufficient voltage to fire it up to get around the track a few times and then pull it in and call it good. Now, nowadays they're made out of cheaper metal. We have some people that come in and the inside cells die out real quick, and they're almost dead as quick as the regular batteries. The cheap ones that you get from the Walmart, which everybody hates, they last about the same amount of time, but they're like 2 or 3 times the cost. So, doesn't really say a lot about the new Optima lineup. All right, going back to Interstate. So Interstate, I heard, was actually a really bad battery. I don't know if this is true or not. I know that AAA actually uses Interstate batteries. I've heard of some other companies rebranding their products as Interstate batteries, and they just put their name and logo on it, i.e. AAA. AAA will rebrand an Interstate battery. Didn't seem like we had bad luck. And some of the warranty is a little bit different. So some batteries will offer you a 12-month, some will offer you an 18-month. But more and more companies are offering less than 24 months on their batteries, and I don't know if that has to do with heat, cold, or poor build quality. So, you know, always put money aside to budget for a new battery once a year if that be the case, because you never know when you're going to have to eat it. And even if it has a warranty, it's a prorated warranty, so they're only going to knock off a fraction of the price. You still have to pay the labor for the installation plus whatever's left month-wise or term-wise on your battery. Going into other things that I wanted to talk about tonight outside of like what happens during what season with you guys is who do you trust more when you're buying your parts? Because I know that auto parts can be a big deal. We were talking about batteries, how they're starting to become built with less and less quality. And what I've seen is that when I order parts from Napa, sometimes they come too big. Sometimes they're too small. And I have to keep doing this back and forth game until eventually you get the right part. Now you would think that's kind of crazy because I think O'Reilly's also orders from the same distributor or manufacturer as Napa does, and they get them in a different time frame. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's slower, but usually it's like the right fit. So I've had better luck with fitment as far as O'Reilly parts is concerned than I have Napa. Now when it comes to electronic components, I haven't had the best of luck with AutoZone. AutoZone, the Duralast brand, look, their batteries are okay, they're not great, they're not bad either, but as far as their other components that are electronic, like sensors and things like that, we've had so many return sensors. There's a reason why we don't even use AutoZone parts anymore, and it's because of such bad luck with their electronical sensors. So that would be a no-go. Shocks and struts. I've had some shocks that I've gotten from Napa in particular, where right out the box, there's hydraulic fluid leaking. Now, I don't know if that's like a residual fluid that comes out every single time, but it always appears that there's some kind of fluid that leaks out at some point when you open the cartridge. And they're rebranded Monroe shocks. So I was like, well, I don't understand that. O'Reilly's, if they're going to sell you a Monroe shock, it says Monroe on the shock. If they're selling you a Ranchero shock, they're selling you a Ranchero shock. Tires. Tires is kind of big too. I've had probably the best luck as far as street tires goes with Michelin and Goodyear than any other tire. Firestone, there was this huge controversy thing back in the 90s where I thought it was funny because they started putting them on the Ford Exploders, and these things were called that because the tires would just explode randomly while you were driving down the road. Firestone got a bad rap because of their tires. Michelin, solid tires. They do have some weathering and they do tend to wear a little bit indifferently. But overall, I've had the best luck probably with Michelin as far as street tires go. As far as all-terrains and mud terrains, I've had good luck with the tire holding up over time with Goodyear. However, there is some funny wear patterns, like with the Goodyear all-terrain. They tend to crack, little pieces of rubber chip off and flake off on the all-terrains, like for the bigger trucks like Chevy 1500 and Ram 1500. Their mud terrains, the knobs on the mud terrains tend to wear a little bit indifferently. I think that's just based on design. It's just not the best design in the world, but the mud terrains have less cracking than the all-terrains. I have a set of all-terrains on my car right now that are Goodyear, and there's cracks like up and down and everywhere, but it's still holding air, so it's not a big concern, but I am getting down there to the very minimum tread. I'm thinking I got about 3 or 4 30 seconds left in the front and maybe about 5 or 6 in the rear, so here within the next month or two, Daddy's gonna need some tires. That means I gotta go put all 4 tires on the damn car. The truck that we have, I think we did go with also Goodyear all-terrains. We might have gone with another brand. I'll have to check them out. Sumitomo, they're okay. I haven't really had a big problem with them. Kumho's, they're okay as well. Haven't had any huge issues with those. Balancing wise, it depends on who you take it to. Now I know that some tire shops have problems with their tire balancers, which could cause a bit of a wobble in the front, makes you think like something's wrong. Just get it rebalanced by a different shop, because I know that some tire shops have a out of calibrated machine and you need to get it recalibrated in order for it to like hold up. Alignments. So look, if your tire's wearing on the inside or the outside, if you're shoveling or you're scooping, you need to take your vehicle in to get an alignment, because simply rotating the tires isn't going to do anything for you until you get that problem fixed. Whether it's a toe adjustment or a camber adjustment, look, those are the things that you need to get fixed. It just depends on how your specs are out and how much they're out by. Caster has a lot to do with the returnability of the steering wheel. So if you don't have a lot of quick returnability with the steering wheel, if you can't let it go and it does its thing and comes back to center, well, then that might be an adjustment that might need to be made. Inner and outer tie rod ends and shaking and jerking and things like that. Look, you're going to have to play it by ear, okay? That's one of those kind of things where if you have it on jacks or a jack stand, or you can jack it up real quick, shake the tire from side to side, up and down. If you have some movement and have somebody else shine a flashlight in there, take a look. But get your shit taken care of so that way you don't run into bigger concerns, because we've had at least a half a dozen vehicles come in with the ball joint completely sheared in half, wheel on the ground, truck nose down into the ground, customer had to be towed in. All because they had a light shimmy which turned into a medium shimmy which turned into they were in the ground. So get your shit checked out. And I'll wrap it up with this. When's your busiest time? Which part store is your go-to for auto parts? Which if you had the least amount of issues with? Which if you had the best luck with? For me, it's O'Reilly's all day, every day. Love O'Reilly's. As far as online shopping, yeah, back in the day, I used to online shop a lot from Rock Auto. A lot of you have told me Rock Auto sucks ass, and you know what? Maybe they do. I've only ever used them for my Jeep Cherokee. I didn't use them for any other vehicle, so I can't tell you the ins and outs of that. I have used eBay for a handful of parts purchasing, especially used components that cannot be found at an auto parts store or an OEM dealership. They've been phased out, so it's harder and harder to find them. I jump onto eBay and hoping that somebody gets rid of a good unit and hoping that I actually get a good unit, because that's the gamble that you're paying for. You want it cheap, you can't find it anywhere else, you're hoping that component works out. But let me know what your take is on the whole situation. Thanks as always for watching. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. We'll see you guys next time. Deuces.